lovelies, and welcome to another Training Tuesday. It is great to be here with you tonight. We're heading into spring, so it's still light outside. That's kind of exciting. Um, and tonight's topic is the 5-point plan, right? To reground yourself when you're stressed out. This is a summary of what we're talking about tonight. And I just want to know, anybody else feeling like we really need this week? Like, I know it's only Tuesday, but I really need to, what do we call it? I had a coworker who used to use the phrase, eat your own dog food, which isn't really an attractive phrase, but when you think about it, I am totally feeling the need to eat my own dog food tonight. So thank you guys for being with me. And we shall eat the dog food together, I guess. I gotta find a better way to say that. That's not very appealing, is it? So, hey, Christine and Jackie are here. Hey, guys, welcome, and thank you for joining me. It is it is tonight. It is another Assertive April training. So every April, I call it Assertive April because I feel like it's a good time for us to do a little reset after the initial rush of the new year and the New Year's resolutions, and then the feeling guilty for the ones that we forgot, and the powering through the ones that we think we're doing or we're not doing as well. Just this tends to be a time we beat ourselves up, and yet it's spring and it's a great time to sort of refresh and start again. So we're going to do that. Hey, Dion, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining tonight. So, what I love about Assertive April is that the theme is always, and this is so spoiler for the rest of the month, for those of you who haven't been on an Assertive April month with me, spoiler is it's about power. It is always about power, and tonight is going to be no different. It is about how do we tap into our personal power, especially when we're stressed, especially when we're overloaded, overwhelmed, right? Because we actually have all the power, and we forget that. We forget it. We deny it. Oftentimes we abdicate it. We give it up, and sometimes we don't even realize it, but that doesn't mean that we don't have it, because we do. And I see Jill is here tonight. Hey, Jill. And so tonight we're going to talk about how do we regroup when we're stressed? How do we avoid the overwhelm? How do we avoid the anxiety, or at least minimize the anxiety, reduce the number of times that we're running to the kitchen for comfort food and potato chips? Could be just me, but I suspect some of you know what I'm talking about. And Joyce is here. All right. Physician, heal thyself. Yeah, I'm having a week. So it's been a couple of weeks, to be honest. I was sick last week, and I'm back this week, and I was feeling good for a couple days, and today I'm off again, but I'm incredibly busy. This is the week that I completely overbooked myself. So I'm trying to juggle that as well. And so as the stress levels rise, depending on what's happening during the day, I'm finding myself needing to revisit tonight's topic. So I'm gonna look at, and I do have some notes tonight because I put some stats together. So forgive me if I'm looking a little bit to the side here. I'm checking the notes. So here are the things we know about stress, and some of this was in the promos if you guys read those. 42% of women report feeling burned out in 2021. And this is from the McKinsey Lean In report. Burned out, when we use burned out as a metric, that is beyond stress. All right, just so you know. So for the number of women who feel stressed, burned out, like that exceeding level of stress, at 42%, which is kind of high. And that's up from 32% in 2020. So if we thought 2020 was stressful dealing with COVID and whatnot, guess what? 2021 was more so. 20% more women feel burned out than men. And I know why. And I think you do too. And we'll talk about some of those statistics too in here. Why do women feel more burned out than men? Because we do more. But we do. Also because we still only earn 82 cents on the dollar. 82 cents on the dollar for every dollar a man earns. That is still a thing. Which kind of blows my mind and then kind of doesn't. I've seen it. Now here's the kicker. If you are Black or Latina, you earn closer to 60 cents on the dollar. 60 cents. That should piss you off. And I hope it does. That should piss you off. We absolutely, totally separate soapbox. Maybe we'll talk about it another time, but we totally need to find a way to close this wage gap. It's unbelievable. All right, there are 1.5 million fewer mothers with children under the age of 18 in the workforce in 2021. 1.5 million, not just women overall. Women overall, by the way, were the ones who dropped the most out of COVID, during COVID, who dropped out of the workforce. But 1.5 million, just the ones who are mothers with kids under the age of 18, dropped out of the workforce. So if we were to break that down across all 50 states, which it's not going to distribute that evenly, but if we were, 30,000 women per state dropped out, said, I'm done, I'm tapping out. And then since COVID, women spend over, and I think we did this pre-COVID too, to be perfectly honest, but in the Lean In McKinsey article, our report, since COVID, women spend over 20 hours a week on unpaid care. And we've talked about this metric before, right? Unpaid work is not just childcare, but it's household management, life management, elder care, right? Unpaid work. We spend over 20 hours a week compared to 3 hours a week that men spend. And this is not a whole men bashing initiative. You guys in this group, you know that's not what I'm about. But this is to show you the discrepancy that exists because our world was and still is basically built on a male constructed paradigm. And that's why we're here, is to figure out how do we navigate this without having to be male or masculine in the way we approach the world, our work, and who we are. All right, so given all of this, no wonder you're stressed, right? No wonder you're stressed, no wonder I'm stressed. So tonight we're going to talk about how do we reground ourselves when all of these things, and some of them we can't control or we don't control, how do we reground when we're finding ourselves on that edge, getting unfocused, getting frazzled, right? Dion, same in Canada. Yeah, see, and that's unfortunate, right? The same in Canada. And I think the McKinsey report has global numbers. I didn't pull those. Most of the audience is North America. Actually, I do have some women here in different parts of Europe. So I should probably look at those. But these numbers were specific in North America. So most of you have shared your name and said hello, and I appreciate that. Jackie, that pisses me off so much. It should piss you off. It should, because, you know, the other thing in the hiring process is we have no visibility to this. Very few organizations give you visibility to what your male peers are making compared to you. Anyway, if you are new to Trading Tuesday, welcome. My name is Natalie Hahn. I am CEO of Dirty Girls Consulting, and I am your coach. And I'm thrilled to have you here. We're here every Tuesday talking about topics of leadership and confidence and skills and career building and life and work-life balance, because they are all integrated, right? There is really no separation on these things. So we talk about all of it. So if you haven't said hello, I would love for you to say hello in the chat, say where you're from, meet the other ladies who are here, some of whom are here regularly, for which I love you, and I do. All right, tonight's topic. So why did I start talking about power? Why did I say power is all of this? And then I got immediately into what stresses you out. Because part of what stresses us out is what we feel like is our lack of power. And yet power is where the solution is. It's where the solution lies if we're willing to take it, if we're willing to go there. And we do this by owning the power, by acknowledging and not just acknowledging and accepting that we have it, but by grabbing it. And our biggest roadblock is that we don't think we have it. So I want you to say yes in the chat if you are willing tonight, we're going to own our power. And by owning our power, we're going to own our stress, which means we gotta call out the stress. We got to say, I own this stress. I understand this stress. I'm going to own it, and I'm going to own my power to help myself move forward through that stress. Can you drop a Y or a yes in the comments if you are on board? Because that's where I'm going tonight with this. I'm going towards ownership of our stress. Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Which translates into ownership of the power, which is funny because we look at it as loss of one and loss of and out of control of the other. But what I'm actually going to talk about tonight when we talk about power is I'm going to talk about control. We're talking about control. And those of you out there who are perfectionists, and I know a few of you are, because I've worked with you, those of you who are perfectionists should love this, whole idea of power. But here's the thing, I don't mean power quite the way we do when we are a perfectionist. Because there are definitely things we don't control. So I want you to share with me in the chat, what are the things that we definitely do not control? When you think about going through life and the things that send you sideways, and sometimes things that don't send you sideways, but just the things that we have to navigate that are not in your control, what are they? I'm going to give you the easy ones. You guys got to come up with different ones. Weather. We have no control over the weather. This is why the airlines don't refund your money if they cancel a flight, because there's a storm, right? Act of God. No control. What else do you not control that impacts your life? COVID. Nice, Jackie. Perfect example. Other people. That is probably the number one thing, Joyce, that drives us crazy. And Dion said that too. Yeah. That's the one thing that drives us nuts. Because we want to control it. We want to control other people so badly. And that's a big bucket, right? Because it's other people's schedules, other people's actions, other people's thoughts, other people's feelings, right? All these different pieces that we desperately want to control for a variety of reasons. But the main reason is typically because of how it reflects on us and how it makes us feel. A few other things we don't control. What else do you guys have? The lottery. God, if I could control the lottery, I'd actually, if I could control the lottery, I'd still be here every Tuesday because this is what I love. There are other things in my life I would be doing differently. Accidents. Jackie mentioned COVID, right? Outside circumstance, we have a pandemic, but even just accidents. Sometimes there is no control over something like a car accident or tripping and falling. You guys got anything else? Any other things we don't control? You got the other people part, and that's really the big one. I had also written down in my notes, traffic. We don't control. And actually, having driven today and yesterday, I drove into Boston and back. And today's driving was in rush hour. And I had to remind myself of, I don't control this traffic. I can navigate it as best I can, but I do not control this traffic. So here's the deal. We can, and we do try to influence and manipulate other people and their feelings and their thoughts and their actions, but we don't control them. Their thoughts are theirs, their emotions are theirs, their choices are theirs, right? And Dion, you're right, and your furnace made the choice to break. We have no control over that. And that stinks, by the way. But yeah, Christine, you're absolutely right. And that's not necessarily a downer. It is a downer, but death is something we don't control, right? And it's something that impacts us significantly. So other people, their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, their actions, they own that. And that's the basic principle we have to accept. They own it. We can try to influence. We can try to manipulate. We can try to put things in the best possible light. But when you think about that, I want you to think about how much of your energy you're truly going to spend on that when at the end of the day, you don't own it. Just like you are the only one who owns your personal thoughts, feelings, and actions. Only you. And when you think about somebody else trying to influence you, trying to manipulate you, trying to persuade you, sometimes it's a little irritating, right? Sometimes it doesn't really sit well with us. So when we flip it and go, okay, but I need to persuade this person, and I need to justify this, and I need to get this person to move over here. I mean, we should think about what our impact is on them. So do we agree? We do not control other people, right? We do not control other people. We do not have that power. We just have our power. So now I want you to think about, we know we don't have power of controlling other people. So now let's think about stressful situations. Can you share one stressful situation in the past 3 or 4 days that's come up? Just one. And you can make it quick, a half a sentence or a sentence in the chat. What is a stressful situation you've had to deal with just in the past 3 or 4 days? You know there's one. It doesn't have to be a huge one. Like I just mentioned, Boston traffic. Boston traffic is not a fun thing at all. Migraines. I get migraines. I've got one today. I have limited control. I try to influence it. It doesn't always work. Right? What are the things that stress you out? For me in particular this past week has been the stress of overcommitment. Right? I completely underestimated some of the commitments I made this week and what that would mean for my schedule, and had to make adjustments. And then I had unexpected, very unexpected things, including the travel to Boston coming up, that influenced my schedule and impacted me. So I had to make adjustments. So that's been my big stress. Jackie, asking for a bigger team, one new hire. Purchase and sale of your house. Yeah, that's a huge one, Christine. Cramps. Feeling sick. Yeah, see, all of these things, they just, we didn't plan for it. We don't always have a backup plan for it. And even sometimes when it's a good thing, it's still a stressful thing. So like Christine mentioned the purchase and sale of her house, and years ago, I used to be a realtor. And one of the things I learned as a realtor is that it didn't matter whether somebody was buying or selling because of getting married or first-time home buyer or moving up or divorce or death. It didn't matter what the reason was. It was a stressful transaction. Right? So, yeah, trying to get everything done so I can, just trying to take time off. That can be stressful, right? Because you're piling things up and then you're worried about what's going to go sideways when you're gone, or did you do enough? All that good stuff. So, for me, this level of stress led to complete overwhelm. Right? Just feeling overwhelmed with the amount of projects I had to do and the amount of things I committed to, and not wanting to let people down, which led to feeling guilty. And then I was beating myself up because I'm the one who got myself in that position. Nobody else committed to the things that I committed to. I did that. And this process of the overwhelm, the anxiety, the guilt, the worry about letting people down, overtaxing of time leads me straight to a bag of chips. That's where I go when I'm stressed. There's a bag of potato chips around. They're in my hand, right? So what about you? What is your stress reaction? What do you do? And if you're willing to share what you're willing to do, great. If not, I understand. I'm a stress eater, clearly, bag of chips. Some people do other things in their stress reaction. That one just happens to be mine. And whether your moment of stress was just being late in traffic, or, if your stress was the cramps or the feeling sick, then I hope what you were able to do was take care, actually take care of yourself. And I was thinking about this as I'm thinking about stress, right? I was thinking last week I was with my daughter, and she was completely stressed out. She's in a new job. She loves the job, but it's new. She's literally been there a month, and her boss just took off for a couple weeks vacation and said, "Here, you do everything." And while she was doing everything, her boss's bosses were sitting in on her meetings. So she felt very watched and under the microscope, not by her boss because he's on vacation somewhere, but his bosses were watching her. And her stress reaction was to talk nonstop, and because she's my kid, overplan. She's much more actually of a controlling, over planning personality than I am, and she knows that. So if she's listening, she knows this. So there was a whole lot of rationalizing on her approach and making sure that she had it all worked out, and that she kind of had ways that she was going to explain it, right? Over planning how she was going to manage her meetings. A lot of talking out loud at me about what was happening and what was going on, and a lot of eating ice cream. That partly wasn't her fault. We were visiting my parents, and my dad literally bought her like 20 ice cream cones. There's a special type of ice cream she likes that he buys for her at the Japanese market, and he bought 20 of them. And I was like, she's here for 3 days. She's not going to eat 20 ice creams. And she didn't, but she did get her healthy share. So I'm glad to see we're not all alone in the food category. Sue does chocolate. Hey, Sue, how are you doing? Sue does chocolate. Joyce does chocolate. Jackie, tune out and binge Netflix. I know that one. Usually with my bag of chips, because why not compound my stress reaction, right? Christine, hide in my bed. That's where I am right now. I hope you're relaxing right now and not hiding, because you're here, and we're here to kind of put the stress out in the open and just say, once it's in the open and we identify it, it actually becomes a lot less stressful. But getting to that place is really the hard part. Acknowledging that actually once we put the stress on the table and shine a light on it, it's actually a little bit easier to deal with. So aggressive cleaning. Joyce does tidying up too. Rewriting lists. Yeah. I had a boss, Jackie, once that would do aggressive cleaning when she was stressed. She would tell me multiple times how she'd be up at night mopping the floor on her hands and knees. So it's tough, right? When you're in that moment, you're getting in this swirl in your head. And usually in this swirl in our head, we're replaying, you guys have heard me talk about this a lot, rumination. We're replaying scenarios over and over. I call it chewing the cud, right? Like cows do. We're chewing it over and over. We're replaying scenarios. We're trying to forecast scenarios. We're trying to predict and control. And then we're beating ourselves up for how we did it in the past. We're trying to anticipate all the future outcomes so that we have the right answer for it, should that come up. And the result is what? The result of all of this eating and cleaning and binging and ruminating and chewing the cud is exhaustion, burnout. That's where we end up. And I can guarantee you, 90% of everything we just acknowledged that we do when we're stressed, 90% of it is wasted energy. It's wasted. That is a validated, verified Natalie Hahn statistic, which means I made it up. But given my conversations, not only with the women in this group, but with the women whom I coach one-on-one and in the group coaching, 90% of this is wasted energy. Here's where the 10% is valuable. 10% of this energy is valuable because we should be thinking about our past choices and reflecting on whether that was the best course of action, if we had whether we would do something differently, knowing what we do. That's actually a valuable exercise if you do it as an exercise. Take the knowledge and then move forward. Right? The problem is the chewing the cud part. We get stuck in that, but if I had known, and we spin circles instead of saying, acknowledging it, and I could have done better, and now I'm going to move on because now I know next time I'm going to move better. We should be thinking about those future scenarios, right? What could happen? So if you're stressed, like with my daughter, the stress level was, I have to run these meetings and my boss's boss is going to be watching. So she was thinking through, how could this play out? I'm implementing a new program. I'm doing this process a different way. The team isn't used to this. What is some of the pushback I'm going to get? And how would I navigate that? So thinking some of that through and preparing makes sense. But there's preparing, and then there's over preparing. And we often, when we're stressed, get trapped in over preparing because we're so worried that if we don't have a solution for every possible scenario, that we're going to look stupid, that we're going to look unqualified, that somebody else is going to show up smarter than us, right? Fear comes up when that happens. And so instead of drawing a line of, here are 3 or 4 basic reactions I can expect, here's how I'm going to handle those, we want to come up with 20 minute. What if they say this? But what if they use this word? And what if they respond this way? And what if they cross their arms? We make ourselves crazy. And again, that's exhausting. That is an expenditure of energy. It totally tires us out. And what happens when we're tired? What happens when we're tired? We stop taking care of ourselves. We eat poorly, bag of chips. We stop exercising. We don't sleep as much as we do. Stop exercising. I have a race this weekend. I have a 5K race in Boston that I stopped training for a week ago. I was kind of training, and then I got into this mode of high stress, and I've stopped. And now I'm looking that Saturday is only a few days out. And you know what? At this stage, the race is going to be what it is. If I can get a couple runs in between now and Saturday, great. But that's one of those, in hindsight, I should have planned better. It's going to be what it's going to be, right? But this is what happens. We eat poorly. We stop exercising. We don't sleep as much as we need to, right? We're often, because either we're stressed and we can't sleep, or we're working extra hours so we don't sleep. We can get short-tempered and snippy with the people around us. We can feel anxiety and depression sinking in, where we start disengaging. And what we're doing when we do all these things, when we're overeating, when we're anxious, when we're disengaging or over-engaging, when we're not sleeping, when we're not taking care of ourselves, we are creating our burnout. We're creating it. Jackie, today I marked myself away for 15 minutes. Jackie, that's a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. And I'm so glad that you did that. That's the kind of control that I'm talking about that we need to take. Take back control of our time so that we can take back control of our head. When we get in that overwhelm, it's because our head is getting so crowded with stuff, and it's triggering emotions that are triggering actions, and it's not a healthy chain reaction. This is what I'm talking about. Thank you, Jackie. It's beautiful that you did that. All right, so this is where we're going to get into the 5-point plan, so keep pen and paper handy. Because when we're stressed, the first thing we need to do is reground ourselves. We are stressed because we are giving our energy away. And it's getting scattered to other people and projects and deadlines, and then self-imposed deadlines. They're not even real, but we self-impose them. Unrealistic standards for those of you who are perfectionists. Other people's opinions. We give away all of our energy to that. And other people's opinions is probably one of the most deadly ones that we give our energy to. And actually, I have a training on detaching from other people's opinions. If you want that training, drop the word detach in the chat, and I will send you that training. But it's detaching from other people's opinions, because that's one that sinks us a lot. All about judgment. Anyway, so when we're stressed, our energy gets scattered. And when our energy becomes scattered, our focus is non-existent. And when our focus isn't there, we're not productive. We get overwhelmed by there's too much to do, there's not enough time, and I don't have enough energy now to do it all, and no one is helping me. Damn it. We feel alone and isolated. So we start by getting back in touch with ourselves. We start at the core. Who am I? What do I want? What do I need? This is where my power lies. This is where the power is. And we have access to this every single day. Our power is expressed. Our power, our personal power is expressed through the choices we make every single day. If you are taking notes, write that down. Your power is expressed through the choices you make every single day. That is it. That is the ultimate power. It's your choice. From what you wear, what you eat for breakfast, how you drive, who you speak to, how you speak, how you choose to respond to coworkers, what you choose to do with your time in every given minute. That's your power. You have a choice. And even in these situations where we feel like we do not have a choice because things are out of control, we do still actually have a choice. We might be needing to respond to things that are out of our control, but our response is in our control, and only you can decide what that is. When we feel the most stressed, that is when we lose touch with ourselves, with the core, with our values, with our integrity, with how we want to show up and who we want to be. And instead we become reactive to everybody else. And we forget that we have a choice because we're in reaction mode. So here's your 5-point plan, and you can do this in as little as 12 minutes. Honestly, you can and you should take longer, but if you're in the middle of a busy day and you're stressed and you're feeling like you don't have time, especially if you're feeling like I do not have time for all of this, that is when you need to take the time the most. Because first, the world is not going to burn in 12 minutes. And second, the rest of your day will go so much easier and so much faster if you take these 12 minutes. I promise you that. Much easier, much faster. You will be more grounded in yourself. You will be making choices from a place of personal power. Okay, so here's step 1. Identify it. If you've participated in the chakra series that I did, I think 2 months ago at this point, you know that I'm a big believer in understanding where you feel the stress in your body. Because where you feel the stress can also sometimes tell you what the stress is if you're not clear. Sometimes we have a whoosh reaction. But logically, we're not entirely sure why we're responding that way. We're responding with anxiety. We're responding with embarrassment. We're responding with fear. But we don't know why we've been triggered. So your first step, 1 to 3 minutes is all it takes. 3 minutes if you're struggling with it, right? Is stop, breathe, and identify, where am I feeling this? Take time to sit in your body. Sit in your body. Where do I feel this? Sometimes you feel, I feel the tension in my head. This is why I get migraines some of the times, right? I feel the tension in my head when I get stressed, right? I feel it all around the crown chakra and feeling connected with the universe because I'm closing it down because there's too much going on, okay? Some of you might feel tension in your jaw or in your throat, like a tightening in your, you know how you get a tightening in your throat? And that can signal that either you have something to say, but you're afraid to say it, or you're saying something and you're not being heard. You could feel the tension in your chest, right? If you feel that pressure in the middle of your chest, that's typically an emotional reaction that makes you feel your heart is at risk. Your emotions are triggered. Your emotions are at risk. You're feeling unloved, uncared for. If you feel it in the pit of your stomach, like you get that ball of nausea or just that hot kind of ball in your stomach, that can be lack of confidence, lack of feeling centered, lack of feeling like you want to put yourself forward and own it, right? So pay attention to where in your body you feel the tension and the stress, because that will give you some information. 1 to 3 minutes of just get in your body. Stop whatever you're doing, sit back and go, I can feel myself triggered, right? I can feel the anxiety right now. Where is the anxiety? Where do I feel it? Now, once you've identified the source of stress, you can usually then identify, like, you can break it down a little easier, like what happened that triggered this? Why was this triggered? And step 2 then is to breathe. An actual breathing exercise. And this is just another 1 minute is fine. 2 or 3 more minutes if you need more time. And the breathing exercise I'm going to recommend is called the 4-7-8. exercise. Now, here's the thing about breathing and why I push this so much. Like every time I give you guys tips, like breathing is one of them, right? And there's all kinds of different breathing exercises and patterns you can do, but here's why. Breathing both mentally and physiologically shifts your energy. It shifts your body. When you adjust your breathing and focus on your breathing, you are physically changing your body patterns. You're changing the way blood is flowing and oxygen is flowing through your body, which naturally changes your energy. So, even if you're a skeptic out there, I want you to try this method called 478. It may have a fancier name, but I know it is 478. Here's what you do. You breathe in for a count of 4. You hold for a count of 7. You exhale through your mouth for a count of 8. So, do it. Do it a couple times while I'm talking. In for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale through your mouth. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You do this just a couple of times. You will feel a difference in your body and your energy. So do it. Identify where the stress is and then work with your body, right? It works because this activates your parasympathetic nervous system. And that is responsible for relaxation. So when you activate this system, your body suppresses the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for your stress reaction. That's the scientific one, right? It suppresses the fight, flight, or freeze reaction. Gets you moving again. All right, so that's 1 was identify where in your body you feel it. 2, the 4-7-8 exercise. Step 3, this is 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, you can do 5 minutes, you can do 10 minutes, you can do somewhere in between, set a timer. I recommend doing this after you identify where it is and after the breathing, because we're trying to settle you down out of that frenetic frenzy mode, out of that overwhelm mode. You're still going to be stressed and overwhelmed, but you're going to be a little more clear-headed and a little more centered so that you can write. And that's what you're doing for 5 solid minutes. It's a free write. And in this free write, you're going to describe the situation you're in. You're going to describe how it makes you feel. You're going to describe why you think you feel that way. Why did this situation trigger those certain emotions? And then you're going to talk about how do I want to feel instead? So instead of feeling like I was in the Boston traffic, like stressed, anxious, constantly watching the clock to make sure I wasn't late for tonight, and all of those things, how do I want to feel? I want to feel relaxed. I want to go with the flow because logically I know I can't control the traffic, right? So how do you want to feel? What are your options for dealing with this moment of stress? What are your options? In a car, I have limited options. I could look for a different route. I could breathe. I could listen to music. I could listen to an audiobook. I could find ways to distract myself from continuously staring at the clock and getting mad at other drivers so that I put my mind in a different place. And then 6 is what's your next step? Once you've looked at what are your options, what are you going to choose to do? So, in your 5-minute free write, there are 6 questions to answer. And like I said, from 5 minutes to 10 minutes, right? That's what you've got. It is, what's the situation? How does it make you feel? Why do you feel that way? How do you want to feel instead? What are your options for shifting your energy to that feeling? And then what are you going to do? And in my case tonight, music won. I didn't want to listen to an audiobook. I didn't want to take another route home because I just figured that would just take me more time. So I listened to music. All right, that's step 3. Step 4, move. Move your body. Step 4 is move your body. And you know that this is another one I'm a big believer of. When we physically move our body, we move our energy around. Physically moving our body shifts our blood flow. It shifts our mindset. in 5 minutes. What can you do in 5 minutes? Especially if you're at work or in an office environment, right? Um, you can walk outside like Jackie did. Jackie said she set 15 minutes just to walk outside to reset herself. Wonderful. Take a walk around the parking lot, around the building. Outside is best. Fresh air, kind of reconnection, especially now that it's spring, we're getting a bit of sunshine. Get outside. In 5 minutes, you can just crank on a song, maybe 2 songs if they're short, dance. You might not want to do that in the office, but if you're working from home, do it. Pick 2 songs that are on that kind of rock anthem or whatever list that you jam out to and dance. If you are in the office, 5 minutes, chair yoga. Why not? There's a million videos on YouTube. 5-minute chair yoga exercise. Get the blood flowing, get your muscles stretched out. It's a reset. If you can get up and move, sun salutations are awesome for this. Do 5 minutes worth of sun salutations. If you're at home and you're working at home, maybe you get outside and you just go putter in your garden, go weed a flower bed, go plant something, go water something. Again, back out in nature, getting in touch with a different activity. If you're not going outside, maybe it's raining and you don't want to go outside, vacuum, dust, do the dishes. Again, physical activity that is separate from the challenge and the focus you're worried about right now. It's only 5 minutes, guys. 10 if you can spare it. Laundry, fold clothes, okay? What we're doing is we're shifting physically what your body is doing. You're not sitting at a computer anymore. You're not on the phone anymore. You're physically doing something different and you're moving yourself ideally in a different environment. But if you're not, like I said, the chair yoga still works. So that's step 4. Step 5. Step 5 is your next action step. What are you going to do? What are you going to do next? In your free write, you identified your options. You identified what are my options for what I want to do. So step 5 is do it. Now for me, step 4 was move, and I was in a car, so moving wasn't really an option, and even chair yoga is not an option. But the action I determined was I'm going to listen to music, and I'm going to breathe, and I'm just going to get through this. And I didn't overthink it. I had a backup plan, because if I had not made it home in time tonight, you would be getting this training from my car on my phone. So whatever the action step was that you identified in step 3, now you're going to do it. Now, whether it's a 30-second action or a 30-minute action or a 3-day action, you've cleared your head, you've written out kind of what you're feeling and why, and once you get that out of your system, you can look more clearly at what your options are, and then evaluate, what do I need to do next? What's my priority? Where do I want to focus next? And then boom, you go do it. It doesn't clear out all the overwhelm. It doesn't solve all your problems. What it does is it gets you moving forward. And 90% of our problem when we're in stress and overwhelm is we get stuck in the hamster wheel of our head, of ruminating, and we're not moving forward. All right. I know we're over tonight. Thank you for sticking with me for your 5.12-minute plan, because that last action step was a TBD, by the way, right? Like I said, 30 seconds, 3 days, 3 minutes, who knows? So just to recap really quickly on our 5 steps. Identify it, breathe, write, move, and then take your action. That's what you're going to do. That's going to help you reset so that you can come back into all the chaos that is your life with a clearer head, with a better sense of your priority, and with an action step to move yourself forward. And as you keep moving forward, you get into that place again, take another 12 minutes and do it again, because you're going to be faced with a different priority and a different action that time. Now, if you, my lovely friends, need help in terms of getting to that action step, quelling the stress, quieting the gremlin voice that causes the stress, getting out of that rumination cycle, then I want to invite you for the Dirty Girl Mini Dig, which is a free 15-minute conversation. It's a coaching call. It's a free coaching call, and that's all we do. It's not a sales conversation where we're going to focus on you. And how do we get you one action step closer to quieting the stress, quieting the voice, getting into that action plan so that you can keep moving forward. It's called a Dirty Girl Mini Dig. And if you're interested in the mini dig, I want you to drop the word dig in the chat. And I'll reach out to you over Facebook Messenger and we will get that scheduled. It's 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes to clear your head. Like I said, 12 minutes to run through that process on your own. 15 minutes, we can have a conversation together, also to help you move forward. So I want to open that up to you guys to join me for that conversation. Just drop the word dig in the chat. And as I said earlier, if you're interested in that earlier training on detaching from other people's opinions, then drop the word detach in the chat. And I will follow up with you guys in Messenger with that training. And then if you want the dig, I'll follow up with some scheduling so that we can have a conversation about how we help you move forward. Thank you for joining me for Training Tuesday tonight. Always a pleasure to see you guys, and I will see you next week.